Close your eyes for a second. Think back to when you were 7, 8, maybe 9 years old. Where were your friends? Playing outside, laughing, fighting over toys, worrying about nothing more serious than what cartoon was on TV. And where were you? You were watching your mother's face when she walked through the door, trying to figure out what kind of evening it was going to be. You were hiding in your room, keeping your little brother quiet so Dad wouldn't get angry. You were making sure the house was calm, that everyone was okay, that nobody exploded. You were doing a job that was never yours to do. And here's the thing nobody ever said to you, not your teachers, not your relatives, not the adults who watched you carry all of that weight with a straight face. You were just a child who deserved to play, a child who deserved to be protected, a child who deserved to have someone scan the room for you, not the other way around. But instead, somewhere very early in your life, you learned a brutal lesson. You learned that if you didn't handle things, nobody would. You learned that your needs came last. You learned that being small and vulnerable was dangerous, so you stopped being small. You stopped being vulnerable. You became the responsible one, the strong one, the one who never fell apart, and everyone around you called it maturity. They said, she's so grown up for her age. They said, he's such an old soul. They said, you never have to worry about that one. And maybe, just maybe, part of you felt proud, because at least someone was noticing, at least something about you was being praised. But here's what they never told you. That wasn't maturity, that was survival. There is a massive difference between a child who grows up and a child whose childhood is taken. One is natural, one is a wound. And if you were the child who was always too responsible, too aware, too serious, what happened to you wasn't impressive. It wasn't a personality trait. It was a response to a system that failed to protect you. You didn't grow up fast. Your childhood was taken from you. And today we are going to talk about exactly what that means, what it did to your brain, what it did to your relationships, what it did to the way you see yourself right now as an adult. Because understanding this, truly understanding this, is the first step to finally, after all these years, putting down a weight you were never supposed to carry. Stay with me. This one is for you. Let's talk about what actually happened inside your brain. Because this isn't just emotional, this is biological, this is neuroscience. What you experienced as a child literally rewired the way your brain works, and understanding that changes everything. In 1973, psychologists Bosormenyi Nagy and Spark identified something they called parentification. It's a word that describes exactly what happened to many of you watching this. Parentification is when a child is forced, not invited, not given a choice, but forced into the emotional or physical role of a caregiver. When a child becomes responsible for a parent's feelings, for a sibling's safety, for the stability of the entire household. It doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes parentification looks like being the one who calmed your mother down when she was overwhelmed, being the translator, the problem solver, the emotional support for adults who should have been supporting you. Never being allowed to have a bad day because someone else's crisis was always bigger, always being the good one because the family couldn't handle you falling apart too. Sound familiar? Researcher Michael Newcomb later described what this produces. He called it pseudo maturity, the outer appearance of an adult wrapped around a child who never got to finish growing. You looked mature, you acted mature. But inside, the child was still there, frozen, waiting, never fully developed because nobody ever gave them the space to just be a child. Now, here is where the science becomes impossible to ignore. In 1998, researchers Felitti and Anda launched what became one of the most important studies in psychology, the ACE study. Adverse Childhood Experiences, over 17,000 participants. What they found was devastating and clear. The more difficult experiences a child faces, emotional neglect, household instability, having to carry adult responsibility, the higher that child's risk of depression, anxiety, heart disease, and broken relationships as an adult. 4 or more adverse childhood experiences, your risk doubles, sometimes quadruples. And in 2023, Nature Neuroscience published findings that made this even more concrete. Children who experienced early adversity, stress, instability, emotional neglect, showed measurably altered connectivity between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala. The amygdala is your brain's threat detection system. In a normal childhood, it learns to calm down when there is no danger. But in your childhood, there was always potential danger. So your amygdala never learned to rest. It kept scanning, it kept watching, it kept preparing for the next crisis. And here is the heartbreaking part. It still does. Here is what nobody tells you about a stolen childhood. It doesn't stay in the past, it grows up with you. It follows you into your relationships, your work, your friendships. It sits quietly in the back of your mind, a small, serious child who learned long ago that the world is not safe and people cannot be trusted and rest is dangerous. And it shapes everything. In your relationships, you are the giver, always. You anticipate what your partner needs before they ask. You manage their emotions along with your own. You bend yourself into whatever shape keeps the peace because somewhere deep inside you, a child learned that when things get uncomfortable, something bad happens. Psychologist John Bowlby spent his life studying what he called the secure base, the feeling every child needs that someone has their back, that no matter what happens, there is a safe person to return to, someone who will not leave, someone who will not explode, someone who is simply, reliably there. You never had that. So you did one of two things. Either you spend your entire adult life desperately searching for that secure base in other people, attaching too quickly, holding too tight, terrified of abandonment. Or you decided quietly and firmly that you don't need anyone, that you are your own secure base, that relying on people is weakness because people always, always let you down. Psychologists call this hyperindependence, and the world celebrates it. They call you strong, they call you self-sufficient, they call you impressive. But you know the truth, don't you? It's not strength. It's a wound wearing strength's clothes.